Hello, good morning and welcome to the Virtual Village Hall. I'm Rachel from I Printed That, and this is another Artist in Focus session for you to find out a little bit about an artist, maybe one that you haven't heard of before, and then try out some artwork based on their work. We've covered lots of different artists so far, from really famous ones like Turner and Matisse, or maybe ones that you don't know so well, like Leah Bepova, or maybe even Mary Seton Watts. Well, if you want to go back and have a look at those, they're all on the Virtual Village Hall Facebook page and YouTube channel. But today we are looking at the zoologist, philosopher and artist Ernst Haeckel. Now, he started off as a zoologist, but evidence shows that he had an exceptional talent for art. So I'm going to be flicking through some slides for you so you can have a look at that art. And I'm just going to give you some facts and some stories and that sort of stuff about him. So, because while Haeckel thought of himself more as an artist, it's his artwork that people get really excited about today. He created these incredible illustrations to go with his studies, and they've ended up inspiring generations of artists. Now, although it's his artwork that Haeckel is best remembered for, it's important to know that some of his scientific and social ideas, which unfortunately were common at the time, were controversial and are now rightly rejected. But we're going to be concentrating on his most famous artwork, which is this. So, Kunstformen der Natur. I hope I've pronounced that correctly, or as we say in English, art forms in nature. So what I'm going to do, I've got the book in front of me. I'm going to pop down my screen. We're going to make the slides smaller. Thank you very much. I've got stuff helping me behind the scenes. That's brilliant. And I'm going to talk you through this book. So if I'm honest, I hadn't actually heard of Ernst Haeckel until I stumbled across this book in a secondhand bookshop, which I think I bought for about £2. So it's always useful to have a rummage in secondhand bookshops. You never know what you might find. So art forms in nature. Let me pop you down and I'll show you through. So it's a collection of 100 detailed lithographic plates, and it shows everything from tiny, just make that, there we go, put that, I'm going to pop that in the middle so you can see it really well, there we go. And it's made up of everything from tiny microscopic creatures with names that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, to more familiar life forms and plants. So we've got jellyfish in here, corals, orchids, ferns. We've got insects like spiders and other beetles. There are hummingbirds, and towards the back of this book we've got mammals like bats and antelopes. And as you can see, each page is filled with these incredible intricate drawings set out like patterns so that you can see the similarities between the species and the subjects. And each subject is its own little work of art in itself. They're often symmetrical in structure, and you can see there's sort of these ideas. I mean, that one, for example, does look like a mandala, doesn't it? But what makes them special isn't just the accuracy that he was able to establish using the technology at the time, although I do think some of these are stylized and given a little bit of artistic license, but I think we'll allow him that. What makes them special, saying it wasn't just the accuracy, but how beautiful and how otherworldly some of these look. People often refer to them as feeling a bit like surrealist art, with the swirling shapes, these repeating patterns. And there's so many beautiful, intricate drawings. And they're more like surface pattern designs than, say, scientific diagrams. Now, his work had a huge influence on designers and architects at the time. So we're looking at that time period, sort of the late 1800s, early 1900s. And especially the flowing curves of the Art Nouveau movement. And even today, artists, illustrators, fashion designers, unsurprisingly, use his illustrations as inspiration for their work. Behind the beauty, there's also a personal story. He'd only been married 18 months when his wife Anna died really suddenly. And after her death, Haeckel threw himself into his work with more of an intensity, almost like drawing and documenting these forms in nature. Really was like a way of coping with his grief. And he subsequently named 2 jellyfish after his wife Anna. One of those was because it has golden yellow tentacles, which reminded him of her blonde flowing hair. He travelled widely, especially to Sri Lanka and the Mediterranean, sketching exotic plants, mammals, reptiles. And he later returned home to Central East Germany, to Jena, and he lived there and he worked just a couple of years before his death in 1919. And I really think that Haeckel showed that science and beauty can go hand in hand, because by looking into some of the hidden structures, there's wonder, but there's also more understanding. And more than a century later, his work is still doing exactly that. So after collecting specimens, often looking at tiny ones like this through a microscope, he would make careful sketches and watercolours, focusing on those shapes and patterns. And that's what we're going to do today. And that's the end of the book. That's what we're going to do today. We are going to look closely at some of his work. We're going to try a sketch or two and then make our own pattern inspired by his work. So usually with our sessions, I do sort of a few quick art exercises, but I think it's really important with this one to spend a bit more time and reflecting the detail that Haeckel also put onto paper. So we're going to do just 3 exercises today. So we're going to do a couple of 10-minute ones. The first one is going to be a copy of one of his sketches. So we're going to look at the slides again. And if I click to the next one, we have this one here. So I just want you to pick one of these subjects. So if you're interested in knowing what they are, I've made a note of it. So this is a detail of plate number 2, which is various species of foraminifera, which is a type of marine protozoa, if that helps with your identification. So we're gonna just take one of these sketches, and before we start, I just want you to spend a few moments just looking at it. So let your eye follow the detail. So maybe you're choosing the one sort of the second along. That's the one I'm going to choose. So we've got these little spiky bits. It's quite rounded at the top. And if you look closely, each of those spikes looks almost like a traffic cone, I think. And then the cone itself going down to the point, it's kind of a little bit like an ice cream cone, and it's made up of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 separate sections. So it's good before you start a drawing just to have a look at what you're actually drawing, and try if you can, as you're drawing, to be looking more at the subject than at the paper. So actually draw what you see rather than draw what you think you've seen. So if you grab a little bit of paper, so with all these art sessions, please don't go and buy lots of expensive stuff. I'm just using a couple of bits of paper from a sketchbook. but you could use printer paper for this. You can use even like paper from the recycling. I find that brown parcel paper is really good for art. So grab your paper, take maybe like a biro pen, a fine liner pen, or some sketching pencils. So I'm going to be using a 2B and a 6B today. I'm going to set my timer because we're going to have 10 minutes on this. Set the timer. I'm going to pop it down so you can see what I'm doing, and I'll let you know when we're going to start. So you're just taking one of those, make sure you can see. Here we go. So you're going to take one of those details along the top, and we're going to start drawing. So let's start the timer. Go. So I'm just going to start with my 2B. And it's actually it's a lot smaller on my screen, so I'm going to have to just hopefully do what I can. So I'm just going to get the main shape in. I will talk while I'm doing this. If you'd rather draw in silence, then please do just quickly mute me. I won't be offended. I'm just putting those basic shapes in, and as I'm taking another look at it, I said it was nice, looked like an ice cream cone, but actually I'm thinking more, it does look like a shell. And then we've got a little point at the end. Oh, so you can see that the bit on the left is actually higher than that meeting part on the right. And then we've just got this little kind of tube at the top. Okay, so that's my basic shapes in. And we've had a minute and a half already. So let's start putting So I'm just making sure I'm looking at where those spikes are rather than where I think they are. Time. So that's 4 minutes gone. Don't worry if you don't get this finished, you can come back and look at it later. As I say, these will be saved on the Virtual Village Hall Facebook page and also their YouTube channel. Okay, so just letting you know that's 5 minutes left. So we're halfway through our time. Okay, so we've got a couple of minutes left. So I just want to finish this bit off and then I need to start getting these spikes in. Time is nearly up. It goes so quickly, doesn't it? Okay, let's get some more of these. And if you look closely, each of these little spikes it's really been thought of. You've got you can see the direction the light is falling. Oh, that's 17 seconds left. Where did that minute go? Okay, and that is 4 seconds left. Okay, you don't need to rush it at the end. If you want, as I say, this is going to be here on Facebook and YouTube channels of Virtual Village Hall, so please do come back and you can finish that off. I know I'm quite eager to get the rest of those spikes in. They take a bit of time. There we go. There's just a copy of one of Ernst Haeckel's drawings. So if you've just joined us today, we are looking at the zoologist and artist Ernst Haeckel, and we're just using some of his gorgeous artwork from Art Forms in Nature, a book of 100 lithographic plates. And we're going to go on to another one now, but this is actually a photo of a passion fruit pollen grain of pollen, and this is a very close-up drawing, so we're going to just spend another 10 minutes, and in that style of Ernst Haeckel, so very sort of detailed, we're going to go and draw this. So like we did with the first one, just take a moment just to look around the picture. Just draw one, I think, in this 10 minutes, so just take a bit of time to look over it, looking a little bit like a tennis ball, and each of those those frills that make up each segment, they're slightly raised, with the inner part being deeper, so a little bit darker. So it's not actually circular, it's almost like it's sort of the main part is circular, and then we've got these three sort of dome shapes coming off of it. So if you're ready, grab another piece of paper and your pencils or pens, and we will start. So it's 10 minutes starting now. So we just put the main shape in. So that's 2 minutes gone already. can, I just realised I haven't actually got a rubber on me. So that will need cleaning up. Ah. I have got a rubber, but it's a very old one. So there we go. Okay, so let's just clean up around and about. So that's my basic shape in. And we've got just over 5.5 minutes left. So I'm sure Ernst Haeckel would have counted every single one of these sort of segments, I'm going to call them. But I'm not. I'm just going to draw sort of a few in, just because of the time. I'm going to try as much as possible. I think I actually need to draw them a bit bigger, going a little bit small. So as much as possible, draw it as I see it rather than as I think it looks. But I'm going to use a bit of that artistic license that I'm sure he did use. Incidentally, the original plates in the book were in colour. So the copy I've got is unfortunately just black and white, but even so you get some, you can still see the amazing artwork. Okay, so that's 3 minutes left. And yeah, I'm going to have to come back to this. Maybe you will need a bit more time too. And I think just by doing these couple of drawings, you really can see the amount of time and patience he must have had. And he didn't have the advantage of just looking at a photo. He would have to keep peering back to the microscope every time. And if you enjoy looking at these sort of plants and sort of specimens in detail, then just Google and some amazing things come up. And the design in nature is just so incredible. And the colours. And I had a look at jellyfish as well while I was researching some of these, which would be a really lovely one to do as well. You may have noticed some of the jellyfish as I was flicking through. Okay, and that is actually time. Just quickly colour those in. So if you just want to finish off where you are, if you need more time, then you can come back to this. Okay, so it's a good start. It's a good start. But yeah, it does show that you do need a lot of time for these particular drawings. So next we're going to do something slightly different. This is our last exercise of the day. Now, as you know, I normally try and keep these to about half an hour, but we are going to go over with this one because, you know, I think it just takes more time than the normal ones. So what we're going to do now is set about making up a pattern. So what I would like you to do is get a piece of tracing paper. So this is about 15 centimeters by 15. You can go like 10 centimeters. That's probably the smallest that I'd go. And it's probably best if I kind of show you how to do it, and you can do this along with me. And then when you get a little bit more time, maybe come back and do your own design yourself, or you can absolutely do your own design today. But what I want you to start doing is taking your piece of paper, tracing paper or see-through kind of greaseproof paper, baking paper, and you just want to fold it in half and then fold it in half again. Okay, then I quite like to fold the diagonals as well. And what we're going to be doing is making a tile from this, and you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. We're going to be working in a quarter rather than the whole bit. And we're going to come up with a tile something like this. Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop you onto the next slide, which I've given you a few different plates, just some really interesting shapes that I liked the look of. And we're going to draw, as I say, just in one of those quarters, and then we're going to trace that onto the next few, the other three. And then we can use a larger piece of paper to start putting our pattern on and working it up. So just before we start, I just want to say this isn't my idea of how to create a pattern. I always say credit where credit's due. This is actually was shown to me by an artist, an illustrator, Kate Linforth. If you want to have a go and look at her website, and if you can, I think it's still on there, is a project that she worked on in 2015, I think, called Hive. And we made tiles of beeswax, and then they all went in a display. But yeah, if you've got a few moments, please do just have a look at that website. But yes, it's Kate Linforth, who's an illustrator. She showed me how to do this. So I'm just going to take some of those shapes that I really like. So I really like that almost sort of crown orb shape, well, the crown that's next to that orb shape. So again, taking that quarter, just with a pencil. I'm just going to use a 2B pencil. I'm going to draw in those sort of spiky shapes, and just remember I'm coming down to about there. And I'm just going to fill that in again, so I'll come back the other way. Okay, so that's sort of our main part of the pattern. Bear with me, it will make sense. Then this, if you think about it, if this is multiplied, this is going to be quite a wide area here. So I want to add something here. So I quite like the shape at the side that's got sort of a lozenge shape. And these pincers. What I will do, I will, because you do really need to see the detail, I will share these images with you. I will add them into the comments so you can see. And it's got these holes in it as well. And then I think we just might need something here. So if I put in almost a half oval, I know that will come back the other way. And then I think I'm going to put one in the other side. So I know it's in exactly the same place. What I'm doing, if I fold over to meet there, and then I'll just go over the top, and that will transfer the pencil mark onto there. And I quite like all those kind of wavy patterns. And just make sure it's symmetrical. Okay, I can just see them. So let's pop those back in. No. Okay, so now I've got my quarter done. I'm going to fold that over. Make sure that the pencil side is down. And I'm going to go all over these again. and we can start to see in a minute, hopefully, that pattern building up. So I'm pressing quite hard. Okay, you can probably see it a little bit faint, but let's fill it in. And it may be at this point you start looking and think, oh, this looks a bit empty. I mean, I personally like this. I quite like that this is empty because there's so much going on around here. But as the pattern starts building, you'll start to see where it possibly needs sort of a bit more design. So now I can fold it over again, making sure that the pencil marks are that side. And I should actually press a bit harder on that, but fine. Actually, that's not very logical. Let me start from the top. Yeah, I need to do this logically. So start from the top. Check that's transferred everything. Yep, that's good. Trying not to move the paper too much as I do this. We want to remain fairly accurate. We want it all to match up. So just go over this. So once we're finished doing this part, there are a few things that you can do to see your pattern in repeat print. So the first thing you could do is to make a lino cut of this. So as you may know, I'm a print artist, and one of the printmaking techniques that I do is lino cut. And this is a really nice one on a tile, lino cut on a tile, so you can repeat it. Just make sure you know which bits you want the ink to take and which bits you don't. So you know which bits to carve and which parts to leave. So you can do a lino tile. Another thing you can do is to take a photo of either the square or even just a quarter. And then if you've got a photo editing app on your phone, like for example, I use one called InShot. There's a free version, it's pretty good. And you can take a photo of that, and then you can multiply the image. And if I flick on to the next one, so that's one that I did with this. So you can really start to see that pattern come to life, and it's gone from just those few shapes that we took from Ernst Haeckel's drawings, and then we've reproduced them. And the more you print, the more you can really see that pattern come to life. So if you don't do lino cut, or you don't have the photo editing app on your phone, then you can still see your pattern in print, as it were. It's a little bit more time consuming, but it's just a case of, once again, going over the back of your paper to transfer those marks, and then you'll do that again and again. Or you could even photocopy just a square, photocopy it a number of times, cut each tile out and lay them out, and then you'll be able to see your pattern really take form. And I think it's just so exciting, because although you can have an idea of what a pattern's going to look like, it's not until it's printed in repeat that you really can see how each mark works alone and then in repeat as well. There's often some nice surprises with that. So that is your homework for today. So I want you to repeat your tile. So be that lino, photo editing app, or like I've just done there, print the tile, or photocopy it, or scan. You can even scan this onto a computer and work that up and repeat it many times. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me here on the Virtual Village Hall today to learn about the zoologist and artist, as he's better known for his artwork, Ernst Haeckel. So you can join me next month as well on the Virtual Village Hall, where we will be looking at the artist Piet Mondrian. That is on Thursday the 30th of October at 11 AM. So I hope you've enjoyed that today. We love to see all your work that you do from these sessions on the Virtual Village Hall. So please do just take a snap and put it in the comments, and I'll be able to see that. And also I'm going to make sure I put some of those images in the comments too, because it'll be really good for you to have a look at those and zoom in. So thank you so much, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye.